More developers need to mix horror with RPG. Remember Parasite Eve or Shadow Hearts? Sadly, there are not many of these around, so when I rented, yes I said rented, Raging BYTES, I wasn't expecting a horror game mixed with turn-based RPG. I guess also in an arcade manner, because why else would a score be important? Sure, this is more about killing zombies instead of killing horrific creatures or something like in Parasite Eve or Shadow Hearts, but it's still horror mainly because of the atmosphere. So Raging BYTES, or known as Zombie of the Dot in Japan, yes really, was developed by Hit Point and published by Camco, released in the year 2023, essentially for everything out there. You know, PlayStation, Xbox, PC, Android, iOS, and the version you are seeing here, the Nintendo Switch. Because I had no idea there was a physical version of the game, I played the digital version for this video. That's why I said rented. And yes, I've already ordered the physical version to add to my collection. So, Zombie of the Dot, Raging BYTES, of course, starts off with this prologue. First it's about this kid and this woman that are seeing something in the sky coming down to Earth that will launch the zombie epidemic, but obviously they don't know it yet. Then, for some reason, we jump to Barbara, not Barbara, chilling out until a dude comes in and tells her to just run. Because at this point in time, the zombies are loose, so having to survive is already the norm in this world. But the real main character is him, that's why the part with Barbara seems useless to me. This is Ben, a police officer that seemingly was in a coma for almost a month, and during that time the epidemic started, and that's why he still has no idea how much the world changed. Now his goal is to find his daughter that might be alive somewhere. And this is how his adventure starts. We will meet Barbara again, a nurse that will join the party. Later, a journalist named Helen and an ex-military soldier called Harry. These four will go on a journey to find Ben's daughter, potentially find out how the epidemic even broke out, find other survivors, and maybe find a place where there are no zombies at all, if it even exists. So yeah, honestly the story is a bit basic, but actually that's okay. There still are a few interesting things about it, because how the zombies even came to be is quite interesting. Sure, essentially everything is very simple. One zombie bit a human, it turned into a zombie, that one zombie bit another human, and boom, zombies all around the place. Well, obviously. But it's actually interesting that this time around the, let's call it zombie virus, came from outer space. One of the astronauts got infected on the way back, he infected his team, and once they landed, they infected almost everybody. Also interesting is to see how the government takes care of this and to see how shady they are in covering it up, as it is typical for those dogs. There's also a talk about some kind of cure for the epidemic, but that's all it is, it's just talk. Well, at least for the most part. I mean, the remaining survivors, outside of our four heroes, might indeed be working on a cure, but we never get to see that because the game simply ends with you finding a helicopter and still searching for your daughter. So no, we never even find Ben's daughter and ex-wife that could possibly be still alive. This might be sequel baiting, I don't know, but I think the game could have had a slightly better conclusion because, as it is, it feels a bit empty, inconclusive. Also a bit empty are some of the characters, or rather specifically Barbara. Since the story is about Ben, he is actually a fine character. As a cop he is interested in the well-being of humanity, so he helps when he can, even in a zombie apocalypse. His development is quite okay, he even has a mental breakdown for a short while, but still, he could have been a deeper character. Similar goes for Harry and Helen. Harry is the brute with PTSD, while Helen is a bit more tame and always searching for a new scoop. You know, since she is a journalist. These two could also have had a deeper story. Harry has a bit more depth than Helen, but still. Barbara, sadly, is a bit of a problem because she basically has zero story and is just support, especially once Helen enters the group. It's not like she is a bad or annoying character or something, but she is just empty, as if the developers completely forgot about her or even give her meaningful personality outside of cheering for Ben. The game also takes a bit of time to talk about what's right and what's wrong with these vigilantes, and they even meet some, let's call them rebels, that are using the epidemic to cause all sorts of chaos. However, the zombies are actually interesting. But how can that be possible? They are just zombies. Well, here, at least some of the zombies seem to still have some kind of humanity in them. For example, this zombie that is a recurring boss and reminded me a bit of Maniac Cop for some reason, is chasing you because of a microfilm that you have. So there clearly is something that is attracting this zombie to it. Don't worry, this gets explained. Or this example, which is an optional boss. Here, the zombie didn't much care about humans at all. He only wanted to protect his little sister that, sadly, is also a zombie. This was a really nice aspect of the game. I liked how at least some zombies still have some kind of humanity and aren't the typical zombies that chase humans around just because they are zombies. If this game ever gets a sequel, which I hope it does, then this point should be explored a lot more. Now, if you look at the characters and even the cities, then they might seem old school, meaning they look as if they were stylized with the image of the 70s or even 80s. But fun fact is, the game actually takes place in 1978, as we can see here, so yes, it is the 70s. And there is a reason for it. I actually just need to show you one part of the game and you will immediately know what I mean. Do you get it now? If not, then let me explain. Zombie of the Dot, Raging Bites, of course, in many ways was inspired by zombie movies from the late 70s and early 80s. But there is a specific one this game was inspired by probably the most, which is why I showed you this area. Romero is a very well-known name in this genre of movies, many consider him to be the king of zombie movies, rightfully so. And in 1978, a movie was released called Dawn of the Dead. This is the second of the Dead series by George Romero, the legend himself, and just like the first movie called Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead is amazing and everybody should watch it. If you watched the movie and played this game, then you might see what I mean. Another example is this shopping mall, also with this character that reminded me a bit of Tom Savini's character in Dawn of the Dead. At least a tiny bit. But then again, if I think about it, this boss zombie might also be inspired by Tom Savini's role in the franchise, and considering how Tom Savini's character is the only recurring character in the original movies, just like this zombie is the only recurring zombie. Well, you know what, maybe I'm thinking too hard about this, I don't know. I don't think I need to say much about the visuals, they are quite cool, with obvious old school graphics. The colors are quite nice, even though most of them are darker colors. But then again, it's a zombie apocalypse, so what the hell did you expect? And I'm certainly not criticizing the game for it. The places you visit look inspired by the late 70s and there is quite a bit to explore. Well, at least for a mostly linear game like this. And yes, the game is very linear, and I think that damages the game a bit. Sure, there are a few side quests you can do that can be quite fun and slightly goofy, like fighting Rocky Balboa. I mean, at this point probably Zombie Balboa, or the big brother zombie that just wants to protect his little sister zombie, but other than that, there are no real alternative paths or much freedom to explore. I mean, there is this instance where you can either stay or just drive off, and there are 2 endings, but otherwise there's not much else to do outside the main story. And again, there are only a few side quests. However, for a game that might take you just, let's say, 16 hours or so max to beat, then, well, I guess it's fine the way it is. Oh, regarding one of the endings, since the game autosaves without there being a way to turn it off, which is a big mistake in my opinion, if you fail to use the correct password in this instance, you will see one ending. However, if you fail at the password and reload the game, you start right at the moment you have to use the code without having a chance to backtrack to find the code or whatever, so essentially you are locked in this screen unless you find the code somehow. A bit weird is the sound though. Now I really like how, for the most part, there is no background music at all while you walk around. Instead, the game tends to be silent with some zombie noises here and there and your footsteps. That enhances the atmosphere the game is going for, which is horror. There's nothing scary about it, with added jump scares or whatever, but it still fits the game well. Even though the footsteps in some areas could have been, let's say, corrected a bit, because why the fuck is there an echo when you walk around but you are in the middle of the street? Once you enter the battle, then there will be background music that actually sounds quite cool, and it's a bit typical RPG, but this is a slight problem I have because the contrast between almost silent while walking around, but then changing it to the typical RPG battle music during the battles is a bit weird. I mean, I like the battle music tracks, no questions about it, but because the game has a horror vibe outside the battles, the battle themes should also do the same to complement the rest of the game like the final boss theme does. But as is, this stark contrast comes across as a bit out of place. But again, the battle themes on their own are actually quite cool, and I even might add them to my playlist. Like a typical RPG, you walk around and fight battles against mostly zombies in a turn-based fashion, and score like a typical arcade game, because I have no idea, but I never cared about that. Since the enemies are all visible, there won't be any random battles. I wouldn't mind if there were anyway, because I like random battles, but if you hate it, then Zombie of the Dot, I mean Raging BYTES of course, won't force those battles on you. And yes, you decide how difficult you want to make your game, meaning outside of the 3 difficulties you can choose before the game even starts, you can also decide how many enemies you want to fight at once. One zombie on the map is usually one zombie on the battlefield, but if you attract multiple zombies on the map, like here, multiple zombies will appear on the battlefield as well. That was quite nice, but sadly you will not really get extra EXP if you defeat zombie hordes that way. It's just a matter of how difficult and fast you want to make your battles. I guess you figured out by now how the battles work. Once a battle starts, all zombies have a certain distance to you, and per turn they will move 1 or even 2 spaces towards you depending on the zombie. Some zombies might even attack you from the distance each turn before moving towards you. But do not let them approach you all the way, because once they do, they will do devastating damage, and you really don't want that, because when I say devastating damage, I really mean it. They can one-punch you out of this planet, so just keep them away from you the best you can. Usually you will kill them long before they are in your face, but if they manage to be in your face, which is indicated by this black area, you better use a weapon that can push them back or kill them outright. And you can see that here. Some weapons can push the zombies back, and this will be necessary especially for the bosses and for liking the video and subscribing to the channel. If they are in your face though, this is the only time you can use a pure melee attack. However, pay attention here, because if you do use a melee attack without killing the zombie, you will take damage from it. If you do manage to kill them with a pure melee attack, then you won't lose HP because, well, you've managed to kill them. It's not a perfect system, but it's an interesting system actually, because you will always try to avoid using melee attacks against the zombies, even though those attacks are very strong. You will always prefer to keep them at distance so they don't kill you and turn you into a zombie. Even though that doesn't really happen in the game, but I think the idea is that once a zombie gets you, you are fucked for good. Sure, it will take a good while before you actually turn into a zombie, so if you take this serum, which heals you, you are good to go. According to this line, the serum suppresses the infection, but just like some zombie games, the heroes are, I guess, special and don't get infected as much or at all. Who knows? I played on the medium difficulty, but I assume that this system will be a lot of fun and way more challenging on the hardest difficulty, because the zombies will be more difficult to defeat and thus will have way higher chances to approach you. One thing you also have to keep in mind is your ammunition. You will have pistols, shotguns and revolvers in your disposal, and for these you need to find ammo. You usually get these by fighting or finding it laying around in shelves or dead zombies or characters that will be all around this bloody world. If you don't have ammo, well, then it sucks to be you. But then again, maybe not, because you also have weapons like darts and throwing knives in your disposal. Well, if you can find them. Ben and Harry will also have their own special attacks, where Ben throws rocks at the zombies, that's smart, and Harry throws stun grenades. Helen enhances the attack power of a character, while Barbara heals a character. This is serum that you can also find around the cities and places you visit, that you can also use if Barbara's ability is not enough to keep you alive. I barely used it. But again, just play at least on hard, because on medium the game can be a bit too easy. Maybe I'll play it again on the hardest difficulty, and no, you cannot carry over your stuff if you restart the game. Personally, I don't mind that though. And since I tend to grind here and there for longer than I actually need, as always, well, yeah, maybe I am at fault for making the game too easy, who knows and who cares. Zombie of the Dot, Raging BYTES of course, was actually a nice game for fans of zombies and zombie movies. It has an interesting battle system, even though of course not perfect, that I can see shine on the hardest difficulty. Music is quite cool, even though the contrast between battle and outside of battle doesn't work too well. Visuals are quite nice with lots of throwbacks, and the level layout is quite fine. But the game may be a bit too linear for some people. Personally, I didn't mind that all that much though. The characters could have been explored a bit better, especially Barbara, and even the zombies could have had a bit more variety. but it was cool to see Rocky or even the president as a zombie. Look at that president! American guns, fuck yeah! Ultimately though, this was a very nice game that isn't flawless, but I think it's worth a purchase and playthrough.